It is the wildest stretch of coastline on the Atlantic seaboard. The barrier islands of Virginia, mostly long and slender spits of sand, broken by narrow inlets and separated from the mainland by tidal flats and immense salt marshes. From Assateague at the Maryland border down to Fisherman's Island at the mouth of the Chesapeake, there are 18 separate islands sprawling across 100 miles of coast. They shield the mainland from storms, and the shoals and marshes and twisting creeks here nourish a great variety of fish, shellfish, and birds. To mapmakers and mariners alike, it's as if the islands themselves are alive, forming and reforming over the seasons. The dynamics of the ocean, the sand, and the wind fashion the constantly changing contours of the barrier islands. It is this balance of forces that protect the mainland during the fierce and sudden storms that rage here. A strong nor'easter will close existing inlets and open new ones. This is a wild place because there's no one here. To the south, there's the National Wildlife Refuge on Fisherman's Island. To the north is the NASA Launch Facility on Wallops Island and another national refuge on Assateague Island. Here, there is no one. No one to give you directions, no one to sell you gasoline, food, or drink. No one to navigate you through the labyrinth of shallow bays and marsh channels, or push your boat off a sandbar when the tide is wrong. No one. Hog Island is the second largest island south of Assateague. It was home to the village of Broadwater, a small community founded in the 1700s and thriving by the time of the Civil War. Charles Sterling was lighthouse keeper on Hog Island in 1903 when he published a 40-page history of the island, praising it as ideal ground for the sportsman. He wrote that in the creeks, channels, inlets, and ocean are found every variety of fish. The marshes abound in soft crabs. Machapungo Inlet is a feeding ground of the wild geese and black duck. Indeed, wrote Sterling, nature has so bountifully endowed Hog Island that it discounts the fabled island of Calypso. The abundance of fish and game here attracted wealthy sportsmen from the north who purchased land and built hunting and fishing lodges around Broadwater. The resources extracted from this system 100 years ago included oysters, waterfowl, even some of the colonial birds and songbirds with plumage that women wore on their hats as ornaments. But the ocean kept growing nearer, eroding the island and submerging land that had been the town cemetery. Families began moving their belongings and even their buildings to Willis Wharf and Exmoor and Oyster on the eastern shore. The village of Broadwater disappeared in the 1930s when the Depression and the terrible hurricane of 1933 took their final tolls. The last resident of Broadwater moved off the island in 1941. In the 1950s, the government built the Machapungo Coast Guard Station on the north end of Hog Island. It was decommissioned shortly after construction and was used as a private hunt club until about 10 years ago, when it was purchased by the Nature Conservancy, a private conservation group headquartered in Arlington. Today, the station is home to researchers and scientists who study everything from water quality to the productivity of the marshes. It lies in the heart of the Nature Conservancy's Virginia Coast Reserve, which owns 14 of these barrier islands, spanning over 50 miles of coastline. Barry Truitt is the Director of Science and Stewardship at the Nature Conservancy's Virginia Coast Reserve.
It's one of the wildest stretches of coastline left. It's fairly unique. You've got islands here and there up and down the coast that are in protective ownership, but only here on the eastern shore do we have a whole system of barrier islands that are able to respond to nature as a natural island would do. What you have going on out here is a huge experiment in natural disturbance. Most ecologists working in a mountain system would wait a lifetime to see a change, and out here changes occur with every tide, every storm, every hurricane. It's just some of the most dynamic landscapes on the face of Earth.
Most people believe that a marsh or a swamp is a frightening place, taboo to humans, filled with uncertain footing and foul smells, poisonous insects and snakes. But a healthy salt marsh smells good. The air is filled with the odors of a giant protein factory in full production. It all begins in a cordgrass named Spartina alterniflora. This is the dominant plant life of the coastal marsh, thriving on the salt water of the estuary and providing the basis of the salt marsh food chain. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone." The vast majority of landscapes here are unchanged because they're in protective ownership. The islands are either owned by the Nature Conservancy or the state or federal government.